I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. I'm not a violent man. I never was. I spent most of my life avoiding people, avoiding conflict, avoiding anything that required me to be more than just quiet. I lived alone in the mountains for 23 years. No neighbors, no friends, just me, the forest, and her, my eagle. The only living thing I ever saved, the only thing that ever stayed. They killed her on a Saturday afternoon in October. 4 men with expensive rifles and cheap morals shot her while she was hunting in the clearing near my cabin. I heard the shot. I heard them laughing afterward. Laughing. Like it was nothing. Like she was nothing. I held her body while the light left her eyes. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten them. I just watched them, memorized their faces. And when night fell and they realized they couldn't find their way back to their trucks, when the forest started closing in and their phones stopped working and the temperature dropped below freezing, that's when everything changed. They came into my forest as hunters. They never left as anything at all. This is what happened to them. All 4 of them. I'm telling you this because someone needs to know. Not the police. Not the searchers who came looking. Someone who understands that some lines once crossed can't be uncrossed. Someone who knows that revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silent, patient, inevitable. The forest remembered what they did. So did I. And together, we made sure they paid for it. If you like stories of extreme revenge, subscribe to the channel. Comment which city you're watching from. Leave a like. Now, let me tell you exactly what they did to her. I was 11 when I found her. Late spring, the kind of morning where the cold hasn't quite left, but the sun promises it will. I'd gone up into the mountains alone. Something my mother told me never to do, which is exactly why I did it. Home was suffocating. My father drank. My mother pretended not to notice. School was a place where I didn't speak and no one asked why. The mountains were the only place I could breathe. I heard her before I saw her, a sound I'd never heard before. Harsh, wet, desperate. I followed it off the trail through a section of loose shale and scrub pine, until I found her wedged between 2 rocks. A golden eagle. Young, maybe a year old. Her left wing was shattered, bone visible through matted feathers. Ants covered her, hundreds of them, crawling across her breast, into her beak, over her half-closed eyes. She was dying. Slowly, the way nature lets things die when it's done with them. I should have left her. That's what you're supposed to do. Don't interfere. Let nature take its course. But I didn't. I knelt down in the dirt, and I started brushing the ants away with my bare hands. They bit me. I didn't care. She tried to bite me too. Talons scraping weakly against my forearm, drawing blood. She was terrified. So was I. But I kept going. I carried her down the mountain wrapped in my jacket, 3 miles. My arm bled the entire way. She was heavier than I thought she'd be. Every time I stumbled, I was sure I'd drop her. I didn't. I kept her in the shed behind our house. Built a makeshift roost from plywood and wire. Fed her scraps of meat I stole from the kitchen. Raw chicken. Ground beef. Once, a whole fish I caught from the creek. I researched everything I could find about raptors. Back then, the internet was dial-up and slow. But I was patient. I printed articles. I took notes. I learned how to splint a wing, how to tell if an infection was setting in, how much water she needed. Her wing healed wrong, the bones set crooked. She'd never fly the way she was meant to, never soar the thermals or hunt from a mile up. But after 2 months, she could glide. After 4, she could take down a rabbit. After 6, she refused to leave. I never named her. It felt disrespectful, like I'd be claiming ownership over something that could never belong to anyone. She was just there. Every morning when I walked outside, she'd be waiting, perched on the roof or in the cottonwood by the creek. When I hiked, she followed. Not trained, not tamed, just with me. 23 years. She was with me for 23 years. Through high school, where I barely spoke to anyone. Through my parents' deaths, my father's liver, my mother's heart. Through every job I couldn't keep because I didn't know how to be around people anymore. Through the isolation that became my entire life. She was the only constant, the only thing that stayed. People who saw us asked if she was a pet. I never answered. You don't own something like that. You exist beside it. And if you're lucky, if you're very lucky, it chooses not to leave. She wasn't a pet. She was the only family I had left. The only thing in this world I'd ever saved. The only thing that ever made me feel like I wasn't completely hollow inside. And they killed her like it was nothing. October 14th. I remember because it was a Saturday, and the leaves had just started turning. The forest had that copper smell it gets right before the first frost. I was splitting firewood when I heard the trucks. 2 of them. Diesel engines too loud for the narrow access road. Music blaring. The sound of men who thought the wilderness existed for their entertainment. I watched them from the porch. 4 of them. 30s, maybe early 40s. Expensive gear. Rifles that cost more than my truck. Camouflage. That looked like it came straight from a sporting goods store. Tags probably still on it last week. They were drunk. Not fall-down drunk, but that confident, stupid drunk where you think nothing can touch you. I walked down to meet them. Pointed to the signs. No hunting, private property. Posted every 50 yards for the last 2 miles. Impossible to miss unless you didn't care. Yeah, we saw them, the tall one said. Blonde hair, sunglasses even though it was overcast. Figured nobody'd mind. It's just woods, right? It's posted, I said. You need to leave. He smiled. Or what? I didn't answer. What was I going to say? I was one person. They were 4. They had guns. I had nothing but a splitting axe and the kind of reputation that makes people avoid you at the grocery store. Relax, man, another one said. Shorter, red jacket. We'll be gone by sundown. Just want to bag something. You know how it is. I didn't know how it was. I'd never understood the urge to kill something just to prove you could. Please, I said, and I never said please. Just go. They laughed. Actually laughed. Then they walked past me like I wasn't there. I went back to the cabin, told myself it was fine. They'd shoot at shadows for a few hours, get bored, leave. That's what people like that do. They don't have the patience for real hunting. They just want photos and stories. Then I heard the shot. Single crack. Sharp. Too close. I was moving before I realized it. Running toward the sound, boots sliding on wet leaves. I knew. I already knew. She was in the clearing, the one near the creek where she liked to hunt ground squirrels. She'd been on the ground when they shot her. The bullet had torn through her chest and out her back. She was still alive, wings twitching, beak opening and closing, trying to breathe. Her eye found mine, just for a second. Then the light went out of it. I knelt there in the dirt and held her. Blood on my hands, blood soaking into my jeans. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Could have been 5 minutes. Could have been an hour. Oh shit. I looked up. One of them stood at the tree line. The tall one. Sunglasses pushed up on his head now. He didn't look sorry. He looked annoyed. Didn't know anyone lived out here, man. Thought it was wild. I stared at him. "It's just a bird," the one in the red jacket called from somewhere behind him. "Don't be dramatic." "Just a bird." I laid her down gently. Stood up. My legs were shaking, but my hands were steady. "You need to leave," I said again. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. Yeah, the tall one said. "We're going. Jesus, sorry about your bird." They weren't sorry. And I wasn't going to let them leave. I buried her while they packed up their gear, wrapped her in a blanket that still smelled like wood smoke, and dug a hole under the cottonwood where she used to perch. The ground was hard. It took me 2 hours. I didn't cry. I think I'd forgotten how. By the time I finished, the sun was setting. That fast, cold sunset you get in October when the days are already dying. I watched the dirt from my hands in the creek and listened. Their voices carried through the trees, louder now, frustrated. "Which way did we come in?" "I marked the trail. It's right here. Should be." "That's not the same tree. They all look the same, idiot." I stood there in the dark and listened to them realize they were lost. The forest is like that. Easy to get into, hard to leave. Especially if you don't know it. Especially if you're not paying attention. Especially if something doesn't want you to leave. I know every inch of those woods, every game trail, every ridge and ravine, every place where the ground drops away without warning. I've walked them since I was a child. I know where the old logging roads used to run before they grew over. I know where the creek swells during heavy rain, and where it runs dry by August. I know where the cell signal cuts out, about half a mile in, and where it never comes back. They didn't know any of that. I followed them without sound, stayed 40 yards back, watched their flashlights cut panicked arcs through the darkness. They were arguing now, blaming each other. The confident drunk had worn off and left something else in its place. Something that smelled like fear. "We'll just camp here," one of them said. "Wait for morning." "Camp with what?" another one snapped. "We left everything in the trucks. So we go back to the trucks. That's what we've been trying to do." I moved closer. Close enough to see their faces in the thin beam of their phones. They looked older now, smaller. The forest does that. Makes you realize how fragile you are, how easily you can disappear. One of them, the one in the red jacket, turned suddenly, shining his light directly where I stood. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The light passed over me and kept going. He didn't see me. People don't see what they're not expecting. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. "Hear what?" "Something. Moving. It's a forest. Things move." But they'd all stopped walking now. Standing in a tight cluster. 4 grown men with rifles, afraid of the dark. I waited. The temperature dropped. I could see their breath now. One of them tried his phone again. No signal. He tried anyway. Held it up like an offering to an indifferent god. "We should stay together," someone said. We are together. I mean, we shouldn't split up. Who said anything about splitting up? But you could hear it in their voices. That edge, that thin crack that appears right before panic sets in. They were already imagining it, already seeing themselves alone, out here. Already wondering what else was in the dark. I could have helped them, could have called out, led them back. It would have been easy. I didn't. I just watched and waited and let the forest do what it does best. Close in, confuse, consume. They started walking again. Wrong direction. Deeper in. I followed. The first one left the group around midnight. The short one, red jacket, said he needed to piss. Walked 20 feet into the trees. I heard him unzip. Heard the stream hit the ground. Then I heard him try to come back. Where'd you guys go? His voice, thin in the dark, uncertain. We're right here, one of them called back. Where? Follow my voice. But sound doesn't travel straight in the forest. It bounces, echoes, comes from everywhere and nowhere. He walked in circles for 10 minutes, getting farther away with every step, calling out with increasing desperation. Eventually, his voice faded, not all at once, gradually, like someone turning down a volume knob. They called for him until their throats were raw. His name was Mark. I learned that from their shouting. Mark, Mark, Mark. The forest swallowed every syllable. By dawn, there were 3. The second one fell just after sunrise. Literally. There's a ravine on the eastern ridge, 30-foot drop, hidden by deadfall and dense undergrowth. You wouldn't know it was there unless you knew where to look. I watched him step into nothing. Watched him realize mid-stride that the ground was gone. The sound he made wasn't a scream. It was something smaller, more surprised than afraid. The sound of him hitting the bottom came 3 seconds later. The other 2 ran to the edge, looked down. One of them vomited, the one in the expensive boots. They shouted down, got no answer. One of them suggested climbing down. The other one, the tall one, the one who'd killed her, said they couldn't help if they were dead too. They left him there. By noon, there were 2. They weren't talking anymore. Just walking. Stumbling, really. Exhausted. Dehydrated. The tall one kept checking his rifle, like he'd forgotten it was there. Like he needed to remind himself he had something that could kill. I wondered if he was thinking about me, if he'd figured it out yet. Probably not. People like that don't think about consequences. They think about excuses. The third one stopped at a creek. The wrong creek, downstream from where mine tailings leached into the water back in the 1940s. The state put up signs. I tore them down years ago. He cupped his hands and drank deep. Drank again. I watched from 30 yards away. It took 6 hours. He started complaining of stomach cramps around 3. By 5, he couldn't stand. By 7, he was convulsing in the dirt, mouth frothing, eyes rolled back. The tall one stood over him for maybe 10 minutes. Then he started walking again. Left him there, still breathing, still dying. I stayed until it was over. Seemed wrong not to. By dusk, there was one. The tall one. The one with the sunglasses. The one who'd shot her and called her just a bird. He'd stopped moving by then. Just sat with his back against a tree, rifle across his lap, staring at nothing. He was crying. Quiet, shaking, sobs. Not for them. For himself. I stood 10 feet away and watched him. He never looked up. Never saw me. People don't see what they don't expect. I already told you that. The cold came down hard that night. October in the mountains, below freezing. He didn't have a coat, left it in the truck. He'd stopped shivering by midnight. I waited until dawn to check. He was still there, still sitting, eyes open, frost in his hair and on his eyelashes. The forest had taken him too, slower, quieter, but it took him. I called it in 3 days later. Used the payphone outside the ranger station 40 miles away. Anonymous tip. 4 men missing. Last seen near my property. Gave them directions. Hung up before they could ask questions. They found the trucks first. Then they found 2 of the bodies. The one in the ravine, the one by the creek. They never found the other 2. The forest keeps what it wants. I watched the search parties from a distance. Helicopters for a week. Dogs. Volunteers in orange vests walking grid patterns. They came to my door twice. Asked if I'd seen anything. Heard anything. No, I said both times. I keep to myself. They believed me. People always believe the quiet ones, right up until they shouldn't. One of them asked if I'd heard about the missing hunters. I said I hadn't. He said it was a tragedy. I agreed. Said the forest could be dangerous if you didn't respect it. He nodded like he understood. He didn't. They called off the search after 2 weeks. Declared it an accident. Exposure. Disorientation. Happens every year, they said. City people come up thinking they know what they're doing. Nature proves them wrong. There'd be an investigation, but it wouldn't find anything. There was nothing to find. No crime scene, no evidence. Just 4 men who walked into the woods and didn't walk out. Just a bird, they'd said. I went back to her grave the day the search ended. Stood there for an hour. Didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. She was gone. They were gone, and I was still here, which somehow felt worse than either. I thought I'd feel something. Relief, satisfaction, some sense of balance restored. I felt nothing. Just this hollow space where something used to be. Not grief anymore. Grief had burned itself out. This was something else. Something permanent. An absence that had weight. The cabin is quieter now. I'd never noticed how much sound she made. The click of her talons on the roof. The rustle of her wings. The way she'd call sometimes. Not to me, just to the sky. The silence without her is so complete, it feels physical. Like something pressing down. I still leave food out sometimes. Old habit. It sits there untouched until the ravens take it. They watch me when I come outside. Careful, suspicious. Like they know something changed. Like the forest told them. Maybe it did. I don't sleep well anymore. When I do, I dream about her eye. That last moment of recognition, before the light went out. Sometimes I dream about them too. Their faces in the dark. The fear that finally understood what I'd known all along. That some things can't be forgiven. Some things don't get to be forgotten. The forest is different now. Or maybe I'm different. I can't tell anymore. When I walk the trails, it feels like something's walking with me. Not her. Something else. Something that remembers. Something that waits. I buried my humanity under that cottonwood tree, right next to her. I know that now. You can't do what I did and come back whole. The person I was died out there with them. What's left is just this hollow thing that looks like a man and sounds like a man, but isn't. Not really. Not anymore. They took something from me that can't be replaced. So I took something from them that can't be undone. Fair trade, I tell myself. But I'm not sure I believe it. The forest doesn't judge. It doesn't care about right or wrong. It just is. Patient and old and utterly indifferent to human concepts of justice. But it remembers. Every drop of blood. Every final breath. Every body it's claimed. It remembers them all. Sometimes late at night, I think I hear her call. That harsh, wild sound. I know it's not real. I know it's just my mind breaking down in slow motion, replaying memories that should hurt more than they do. But I listen anyway. Because that sound is the only thing I have left of her. And their silence is the only thing I have left of them. The forest stands. The seasons turn. The snow falls and melts and falls again. And somewhere in those trees, in the deep places where the light doesn't reach, 4 men learned what it means to take something from someone who has nothing left to lose. I'm still here. They're not. And every morning when I step outside and the forest greets me with that heavy, watching silence, I wonder which of us got the worse punishment. Me, left behind with this emptiness, or them, who don't feel anything at all anymore. Either way, the forest remembers, and it always will.